This Xfinity 500 DFS Picks episode of the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog has just added Pick'em Scorchers where you can win 100x. That's right, turn $5 into $500 in one game. Plus, every Sunday they're giving away $100,000. Use promo code SGPN at Underdog Fantasy for a 100% deposit bonus up to $500. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off of your first month and start making smarter bets today. Plus, the NBA is back, and so is the NBA Gambling Podcast. To celebrate, we're giving away an NBA Gambling Podcast hoodie. Head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/NBA Dog for all the details.
Driver, start your engine!
Strap in and pull those belts up tight as the Sports Gambling Podcast Network presents the NASCAR Gambling Podcast.
I'll wreck my mom to win a championship. I'll wreck your mom to win a championship.
With all the news and the best bets for your NASCAR weekend.
It refrains me from not beating the out of you right now because you ask me stupid questions. But since I'm on probation, I suppose that's improper to say as well. If you could talk about racing things, we could talk about racing things.
Now, here are your hosts, Rod Villagomez and Cody Zeeb.
Yes, indeed. It is, of course, another episode of the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. As always, he's Cody Zeeb. I am Rod Villagomez, and we are getting set for short track action. The playoffs are coming to a close because
playoffs.
Now we're going to be talking about the championship, the actual race for the championship after Martinsville. But let's not overlook Martinsville. We, as we bring the playoffs to a close, it's a sad week here, but we'll make the best of it, I'm sure.
Yes, here we are at the penultimate race of the Cup Series season.
What does that even mean?
As FS1 so gladly taught us about last week.
What does the penultimate even mean? Of course, this is the second to last race of the season. It is Martinsville. It is the final cutoff race in what is going to be shaping up as a very interesting championship for lots of stuff up for grabs. Obviously, if you have not already gone back and listened to the racing episode or the betting episode rather, we lay out all of our bets for this one. This, of course, is our DFS episode with a separate Underdog Fantasy episode to come tomorrow. So no trucks this week, unfortunately. So that's why we're getting this extra episode in for Underdog.
Yes, they had their penultimate race last week.
They did. So they penultimated before everybody else penultimated. Is that, can you use it as a verb?
You can now.
Doesn't even matter at this point.
You just did.
I did.
I feel like just anything anybody says gets thrown in the dictionary anymore. So like any word can be a word because it's, it's all in there at this point.
But that's how languages ended up being a language. I don't know how or who pointed to an apple and said apple. Like, I don't know, but we can all craft our own words.
They probably didn't say apple either. It was probably in a different language and eventually got translated to apple. So, here we are.
Here we are. I mean, this is
now an apple is just your phone. So
amalgamation of now apple is just your phone. Titanium. All right. So listen, we already know Christopher Bell's locked in. We already know Kyle Larson's locked in to the playoff, the championship for drivers are still looking to put that ticket in there. Cody, what does the playoff standings look like as we start to take all of this into effect and how we're going to build our DFS lineups?
Yeah, so really makes it a little bit tricky, I guess, looking into this. I think that we kind of have the answers we need, though. Christopher Bell, Adam Stevens said they're going to be trying things this weekend, so it makes you hesitant on him. I did toss him out there as a winner on the pick show earlier this week just because I feel like at the number with the momentum they have, even if they're trying things, they could be good. As far as relying on them in DFS, I don't know if I would do it. We'll see where he starts, right? If he's on the pole, then maybe what they're trying is working, right? And if he's way in the back, then the place differential obviously could be there. So I would be hesitant to play Christopher Bell a little bit this week. Kyle Larson, they proved it last week, right? They're going balls to the wall. Now, that can go one of two ways for you, right? So we might talk about him here in a few minutes, but those guys obviously locked in. They've truly doesn't matter what they do this week, but I think that Larson will be racing to win this race. I think Bell could potentially be trying some things as they talked about. So just kind of where we're at with those guys. For everyone else, Byron, he's 30 points to the good. Does he points race more? Does that hurt him in the long run, help him in the this track is hard to figure out because I think there is going to be some strategy here and there is going to be some people taking wild swings, but who exactly it is, when those strategy calls, if we get a caution with 5 laps left in the stage, then yeah, some people are going to stay out and get stage points if they feel like they need to points race. And some people are going to try and flip the stage and get the track position because track position is king here in this car. So as far as DFS goes, I think all the other guys are kind of on the table as far as, I don't know if there's anybody you can't play just because of the situation they're in or anything. Bell is the only one that I would say maybe lay off of a little bit. A guy like Chris Buescher, he's in a must-win situation, but I don't know that really affects anything because, if they take a wild swing at the end and try to win, then you get him, good finishing position potentially. Do they try different things throughout the race that hurts them? There's a potential for that too, but yeah, I would say Bell's probably the only one really that the way the playoff standings are now and from what they've told us is the one you maybe want to be a little hesitant on, but you can't completely rule him out either.
Yeah, and again, this is why with DFS, it's a much different animal than betting because if you bet Christopher Bell to finish in the top 5 and he doesn't finish in the top 5, you don't cash. If you put Christopher Bell in your DFS lineup and he doesn't finish in the top 5, well, he's probably not going to wreck your day unless he finishes like 30-something, right? Or he starts on the pole.
He hits the sand barriers.
unless he decides he misses the beach so much that he wants to create his own on the track. Go back and listen to the betting episode for all the great sand puns that we had in that one. But yeah, I mean, again, it's just a matter of building your lineups. You can do multiple ones too. So it doesn't hurt if you throw a Christopher Bell lineup out there to sort of hedge yourself. And, again, like I said, we are heading to Martinsville. This is 500 laps around this 0.526 mile paved track. 263 miles is the length of the race. A lot of laps.
A lot of laps. This is a lot of laps, and you've got to get the lap leaders in this one to have any chance in your DFS contest. That's going to be important. So you've got to get the laps led. You've got to get the fastest. There are so many of them. Sure, place differential will make a difference. Finishing position obviously will make a difference like they always do, but probably more so here than anywhere else. I mean, because it's 500 laps, right? That's what we're doing. So that's more than the spring. Spring race was only 400. 500 laps is 500 laps led to be awarded out there. 500 fastest laps to be awarded out there. So you have really got to nail your lap leaders this week. And we've seen a combination in the past couple of races, right? You have like William Byron type of race where he leads every single lap and he's the guy. And then you have the spring where Ryan Preece leads a bunch of laps, or Chase Briscoe leads a bunch of laps, or Kyle Larson leads a handful of laps, and it was really spread out. So, many different ways it could go this week.
Well, and I'll tell you right now that over the last couple of seasons, I mean, you look back at even just the last 3 races, and I'll use that as a sample size at Martinsville. You had Ryan Preece, like you said, lead 135. Then you had Chase Briscoe lead 109. But before that, Denny Hamlin, 203 laps. And we'll talk about that in a second. And then William Byron, 212. Chase Elliott, 185. So guys get out and they string this race along. And what I find fascinating, Cody, is somebody compiled a graph of all of Jeff Gluck's. Was this a entertaining race of the season, right? Guess which one came in dead last? Martinsville. Dead last. And was this a good race? That tells me that even in a short track, this thing got strung out and people were bored watching this race. So we could be in for that again.
Yeah, it's again, the short track package needs work. That's not a secret. Everyone knows. Everyone's talking about it. They're working on it. They are bringing a new tire combination here. There was a test earlier this summer, I guess, that they worked on some new tire combos, and they're bringing that new tire here. Maybe that'll help. Everyone's hope, obviously, going forward is next year the short track package will be improved, but it's still going to be, there's going to be drama, right? There's going to be, and it may be more on pit stops, and it may be more on strategy, and it may be more on somebody bumps a teammate out of the way to punch their way to the Final Four like Ty Gibbs did last year. I mean, I think we could still see lots of things. NASCAR is going to tweet about the Hail Melon all week, even though it's not legal anymore. That's just blows my mind. I don't know. Why are we advertising this if we're not allowing it anymore? But
Well,
whatever.
it's the tush push of NASCAR.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Oh, yep.
All right. Well, we will give our DFS picks on the other side of our tush push. But first, let's tell you about Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy has a way to play alongside your favorite football team all season long. And as we know, drive along with your favorite drivers as well. Underdog has just introduced Scorchers. Go 5 for 5 and pick them Scorchers. You're going to get a spicy 100 times payout. And for a limited time, Underdog is extending that first deposit bonus up to $500. $100,000 Sundays continue on Underdog Fantasy. 10 lucky players are going to wake up $10,000 richer. Toss out. Underdog Fantasy plays to you on Friday when we give you our Underdog Fantasy centric show. We're going to give you all of our favorite picks from the slate and, of course, all of our favorite races. So watch along, make your picks, and maybe make a little cash over on Underdog's mobile app or website, underdogfantasy.com. And when you use the promo code SGPN, Underdog is going to double your first deposit of up to $500. That's Underdog Fantasy promo code SGPN. The NBA is back, and to celebrate, we're giving away an NBA Gambling Podcast hoodie. Head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/NBA dog to submit a screenshot of you playing NBA Underdog using our promo code SGPN. One random winner is going to get an NBA Gambling Podcast hoodie. Just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/NBA dog. Well, if you are new to the DFS episode, first of all, welcome this late in the season. I know that people stumble on podcasts later sometimes than most, but if you are new, we give you our favorite high price players, our favorite mid-tier drivers, and our favorite value drivers each and every week. You can use all 6 of them if you want to build a lineup. You can pick and choose. You can use none. It's up to you. We're just giving you what we think is going to be our favorite plays of the week, and you build accordingly. And of course, join the Discord. Cody drops in a contest each and every week where you can put your DFS skills to the test against everybody else that's in there, up to and including Cody. Take his money from you as well. So, yeah, Cody, this week is going to be important to find, because the high-priced drivers on this slate are the ones that are going to probably lead a lot of laps. So mixing and matching is definitely key this week.
Yeah, could be not. I mean, we're going to talk about a couple of mid-tier guys that have the potential and have led some laps as well. So, again, we don't know, war starting positions yet. We don't know all of those details. So you have to keep an eye on that as we continue to go throughout the week. But Rod, first up for me, I would just like to take the pole sitter because whoever that is probably going to lead a lot of laps. So I would throw that out there. Whoever's sitting on the pole, it's going to be chalky, but you're almost going to have to play him this week just because there's such an advantage. They're probably going to lead the first 134 laps or so, like Ryan Preece did in the spring. So I think that's important. I wanted to throw that out there. But my high-priced driver, again, Kyle Larson, not a guy we're on very much just because he's high-priced and his odds are bad always. And this week, he is not getting any love, and I just don't understand it. Denny Hamlin kicks off the card at 11.5. William Byron's 11.2, and Kyle Larson's only 11,000. Like, what a discount for Kyle Larson compared to his 11.5 last week. Now last week, obviously, he ended up at the beach and didn't necessarily have the best day ever for you. But he didn't hurt you as bad as he could have since he had led some laps and had fastest laps as well. But Kyle Larson, again, he's going to be going for it. He proved that last week. They're not trying things. They're not testing things out. He said, and whether you believe him or not, he didn't work on Phoenix in the simulator at all. It was 100% on Homestead, which is stupid in my opinion, but he's Kyle Larson, so he can do whatever he wants to. But it's just Kyle Larson. He's really fucking good. Everybody knows this at this point. He's going to put himself in a position to have a chance to be really good this weekend. The last time we were here, he won the race. So that shows you what he has the capability of doing, right? It's not, now if you go back through his history at this track, it's not the best, right? This isn't one of his better tracks, but the fact that he has one here, we talked about him on the betting episode. He led some laps here in the spring. It wasn't the most. I think he led 34 laps or so. But you go on a race-to-race basis with him, and like last week he led 96 laps for you at Homestead, 133 at Las Vegas. You go back to Texas, he led 99, 20 at Bristol, 99 at Kansas, 55 at Darlington. Like when he gets out front, when he leads you laps, he led 145 in the All-Star race, which, by the way, short track, flat track, that short track package, not a lot of passing, at 145 laps, and I think there was only about 150 in that race. So he led a majority of them there, right? Phoenix earlier this spring, shorter, flatter track, 201 laps he led there. And then let's see, Martinsville, he led 30, but he did start 19th place. So he had to work his way through the field, and he did, and obviously getting the win there at the end. So again, just because they start farther back doesn't mean they can't get the win. He worked his way up there. He got it done. But again, I think Kyle Larson just being slept on a little bit by the books, being slept on a little bit by the DFS pricers or whatever you want to call them. So I think you've got to get in on some Kyle Larson this week. So give me him to kick it off at 11,000.
I like Kyle Larson in this instance as well. And really, there's two ways to look at this. I don't have anything particular to race for scenario. And that's, we're going to go balls out and we're going to just try to win this race because what else do we have to lose? Or we're just going to try not to tear up ourselves, our car, and just kind of skate into the championship four. I don't know that Kyle Larson's the kind of guy that likes to just sort of coast into another race.
He doesn't do anything less than 110%.
That's up to and including running into sand traps.
Which is a great thing about him. Obviously, look what he accomplishes, but also it's the bad thing because sometimes you need to be at 100% and not 110 because you hit the sand barriers. And then that's, so he is a little bit of a higher risk play too. And I think maybe that'll get some people off of him because they had him last week. And because, Larson's going to Larson and do Larson things. And he's so talented that sometimes, he overuses it and it causes mistakes. And you look back through his results and there is a lot of ups and downs in his results. So it is a little bit of a riskier play, but we know what he can deliver. We know how good he can be. We know he won here in the spring. So you just got to watch out for Kyle Larson.
Well, I tell you, I did watch Kyle Larson drive last week, and I got to tell you, this guy spends more time on the sand than David Hasselhoff. Sorry. I had
what year is it, Rod?
I had to fit Happy Gilmore in there. I can't not. I'm sorry. It was just, that's funny. All right. My high price driver before I everybody's turned it off, so it doesn't matter. Who cares who my high price driver is? All right. Denny Hamlin is my high price driver. He is the highest price driver on the slate, right at $11,500, but for a significant reason. When you look at the track leaders as far as laps led on this particular track, it is Denny Hamlin at 2,226 total laps that he's led on this track in his career, in his 35 races in this career. The next best guy, and a guy that we haven't talked about in weeks other than to say don't bet on him, is Kyle Busch at 1,429. So he has got damn near 1,000 more laps led. I know my math is bad. It's not necessarily a full one, but he's got a lot more laps led than Kyle Busch. Farther down on that list is Joey Logano at 1,123. So look, Denny Hamlin just really, again, on this track has been fantastic. 36 laps he led in the spring, 203 he led in the fall of last year, 103 in the fall of 2021, 276 in the spring of 2021. He's led a lot of laps, and he's led a lot of laps lately too in this. Finishes have not all been consistent to go along with them. In 2021, in the spring, he had a third place finish after a second place start. In 2021, after those 103 laps that he led, he had a 24th place finish. In 2022 in the spring, just swung and missed at this race altogether. Started 25th, finished 28th, but in the last couple of races, 2 top 5 finishes, a 5th place and a 4th place to go along with that. And not bad DFS days too, to be honest with you. Started 11th and finished 5th in that fall race of 2022. And then in the spring, he started 11th and finished 4th in that race, again, leading 36 along the way. He got you 70 points that day in that race, and he was actually 10,000 on that one. So he got you 7 times your return on investment for him. He's averaging 41.4 fantasy points per race, which is right up there with the leaders. In fact, it's the what is it? Fourth on the list. No, third on the list. So right behind William Byron and Kyle Larson. So again, for Denny Hamlin, this is his track. This is a track that he's very familiar with. Obviously, we know that he was part of that Hail Melon play last year, which definitely kind of bumped his importance up on this track. But of course, we know that no one can Hail Melon around him this year. Therefore, I think he's safe for a more solid finish. And like you said, and like we talked about, having these lap leaders is crucial. And if Denny Hamlin does start on the pole, if Denny Hamlin is one of those guys that kind of jumps out to the lead, granted, he doesn't start on the pole here very often, but if he does, and hell, even if he comes up from an 11th place finish, he can, or 11th place start, he can still lead 200 laps like he did in the fall of last year. So yeah, again, I think you have to have at least one lineup with Denny Hamlin in it, because if he does tend to lead these laps, if he does jump out and you don't have him, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, I think that Denny is a guy I probably would have taken him had you not beat me to the punch and got him. He's a heavy favorite to win this race. Let's see. I was looking at Caesars here, and for winning odds, they have got him as the favorite at plus 300. Then it's Larson all the way at plus 650, Byron at 800. So like it goes dramatically up from Hamlin. He's been very good here in the past. And he said it this week, like he is, from the drop of the green flag, he is going balls to the wall. He's going to do everything he can to win this race. And I think that we're going to see him up front throughout the day.
I agree, which is why I suggested it. So yeah, like I said, I think he's got too much to lose now this time around to not go for it and go for it hard. So, all right, we'll take a step down to mid-tier drivers. But let me tell you first about Hall of Fame bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame bets, the sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NFL, NBA, MLB, and soccer bet with historical stats and data. You can enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame Bet's revolutionary parlay optimizer tool. You're going to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as an expected probability for the entire parlay. You could sort all players by hit rates for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value. So stop betting in the dark. Join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off of your first month today. Start researching, start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. Cody, let's take one step down into our mid-tier drivers. Of course, these are drivers who we think have value but are not priced too exorbitantly high.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go to Chase Briscoe. Again, this is my guy when it comes to short tracks, when it comes to flat tracks. I love fading him elsewhere, but you've got to take him when it comes to this type of track. And he's a guy that people are just going to look at and they're going to be like, meh, and they're going to skip right over him. He does a pretty decent job, actually. His average this season is 23.5, so he's not killing you, but it comes in ups and downs, right? You got your 31 points last week, but only 8 the week before. He's got a 6 in there. He's got a 25, but then a 1.1 and minus 1.7. And it goes up and down for Briscoe. But this is the type of track where it goes up for Briscoe. You go back to the spring here. Obviously, we talked about his teammates, and he's led a ton of laps here. But Briscoe starts in 4th place. Leads 109 laps during this race. Ends up finishing in 5th place. Again, you kind of go back and you look through like recent results, 17th, 33rd, 28th, 13th at Talladega, blah, blah. But You go down to these tracks in New Hampshire, he's up to 10th place. And the All-Star race that I mentioned before, again, North Wilkesboro, a shorter, flatter track. He finished 4th place in the All-Star race. Martinsville finished 5th place there. And then you go back and you look at what he did last year in 2022, if I can get that to pull up. And, the championship race, he finished 4th place in Phoenix at the championship race because, again, Phoenix, a shorter, flatter track. He led laps there. The week before in this race, started 3rd place, led 25 laps, ended up finishing 9th. So, started well, but didn't quite get as good of a finish, but still a solid run for him. And then you go back and you look at what he did earlier on that season at Phoenix. He led 101 laps and won the race. You go to Martinsville in the spring, he started 19th, ends up in 9th for you. He is just consistently good every single time we come to short, flat tracks. A guy that I always have circled, a guy that I will definitely be getting into my lineups, and he's only 7,300. So he's nice and cheap for you, offers you a pretty high ceiling, as well as a decent floor because this is his type of racing, and Stuart Haas specifically, Ford specifically, better at these types of tracks. So give me Chase Briscoe, 7,300.
And let's face it, you've done a fine job of hammering down his value all season long so that you can jump on opportunities just like this.
It's perfect. Yeah, he cashed us a huge at Martinsville earlier this season. Top 5 bet we had on him. Cashed us big there. Then, after that, you go jump right back into fading him, and we faded him all summer. Then you get in on him when we get to the New Hampshires, and you get in on him when we get to the Phoenixes. And this is where you take advantage of it because he's not great everywhere else for the most part from what Stuart Haas has been giving him and how his season's been going, but always shows up at these short flats.
You guys got to know Cody's playing the long game. It's about you. It's about winning you money, but he's playing the long game. He's head tripping everybody into thinking Briscoe sucks. And then
we did it with Denny last year, right?
We did.
Oh, man, Fade Denny was a hashtag we were using the first half of the season. Made us a lot of money. Then we switched and made a bunch of money on Denny the rest of the season and this season too.
I'm telling you, this is the long game that is NASCAR betting and DFS. So, all right, let's move on to my mid-tier driver. I'll stay in that Stuart Haas garage, and I'll take his teammate Ryan Preece. You talked about it too with Ford. You talked about it with this SHR team. They're the short flat tracks. Even Eric Almirola, if you even wanted to. But I don't know if we're going to touch him too much. But for Ryan Preece, it's almost a little recency bias for me. Honestly, obviously, because we talk about what Briscoe is able to do. But for Ryan Preece in the spring, he led 135 laps. He started on the pole in this race. It has not been a glamorous career for Ryan Preece, especially on this track in particular, right? Granted, he finished 15th in the spring after starting on the pole, but for him, that's a gigantic step up considering his finishes before. I'll read them. Try to hang on to your lunch. 36th in the fall of 2021, 36th in the spring of 2021, 19th in the fall of 2020, 26th in the spring of 2020, 19th in the fall of 2019, 16th in the spring, and then 42nd in the remember 42 cars being on the track in the fall of 2015. I sung them to you so that they kind of went down a little bit better than they would, but I will say again, for Ryan Preece, he actually has taken a gigantic step up, especially in his short track showings this season. I talked about all of those bad finishes, but so far this season, right? Bristol, he finished 12th. Richmond, he finished 5th. Martinsville, 15th. Richmond, 18th, right? That's all the short tracks this season. Top 20 finishes, and in some cases, top 15 finishes. And then, of course, in Richmond, a top 5 finish. So whatever Ryan Preece has been doing on the short tracks this season, you like it. And again, for betting purposes, none of this kind of matters because you're not making any money off of a top 20 finish unless you find a good head-to-head with him in it, or he jumps his way up to a top Ford, which is whatever in between. But for DFS purposes, if you're getting almost 4 times the return on what you're paying for him in, that's not bad for a guy that's about $7,100 on you. And you definitely will take that. What did he do? How many points did he score you in that NOCO 400 here? We're not going to, he scored you 59 points that day off of a $7,000 salary. That's pretty damn good for it. And overall, he's scoring you 27.6 fantasy points per race, which, like I said, just shy of 4 times what you're paying for him if he gets you that again this week. Last week, he got you 46, right? The week before that, 22, 39, 50. You got to go back. He's only lost you points once this season, or twice. I take that back. But one of them was at the Geico. Well, actually, I take that back 3 times. But we're talking like super speedways at the Daytona 500, the Geico 500. He lost you 10 points there, and then at the Coke Zero Sugar 400, he lost you 10 points. So again, we're talking, super speedways and some bad races for him there. But all in all, he's getting you positive points, and that's all I want out of a guy at $7,100 on this kind of track.
Yeah, I love it. Talked about Ryan Preece back on the betting episode. Go back and listen to that. Was great here in the spring. Was great at the Coliseum, before the season started. Modified background. This is his type of racing. Again, Stuart Haas, and you mentioned their teammate, Eric Almirola. Play him too. I'm good with playing him this week. Like, I might throw a lineup in there with all 3 of those guys in there just for shits and giggles. Maybe even throw Harvick in there just for old time's sake. But I love these Stuart Haas guys this week. This team and these drivers are built for these tracks. Love Ryan Preece. Obviously, if you listen to the betting episode, I think he can win this race. If I think he can win this race, probably means he's going to be a pretty solid DFS play as well.
I agree. All right. Well, then all that's left to do is give you our value players for this slate. Cody, who is the person that is going to save you the most money and give you the best return on this slate?
Honorable mention yet again. Corey LaJoie. He does it again for you. 5,700 last week, 23 points. The week before, 33, 73, 17, 20, 22, 22, 65. Continues to get it done. 5,700 last week. And he was running top 10 at the end of stage 1, stage 2, somewhere right in that area. Lost his ability. They could not hear him the rest of the race on the radio. And so, that I think that cost him some spots. Another great run by him. He's cheaper this week. He's 5,400. Why they keep giving us these gifts, I don't know. I'm going to continue to play him. But, again, that's just honorable mention because I'm not going to keep giving him out every week. So I am going to go near the bottom of the barrel, though. Ryan Newman, he's back in the Rick Ware car, 5,200. He's been pretty solid when he's been in this car just about every single race. We talked about him. I think you might have brought him up last week as a play. I can't remember, but he scored 24 points last week in the Homestead. Again, that's a bigger track, 1.5 miles in a Rick Ware car. Still gets a good solid finish, starts 34th, finishes 26th. So he doesn't have to do that much. I mean, that's just, a couple cars go out of the race, gains a couple spots, has a decent finish. Boom, he's scoring you some points. Bristol wasn't great, minus 3.6. Again, that's where he spun out almost on purpose to avoid Tyler Reddick, who tried to make that really late pit stop. But then you go back to Darlington, he scored you 23.5, 16 points, 15 points in New Hampshire, the All-Star Open, 33. But he's had some good runs in this car. So I think he's a guy that you can take, and you look back, and he's been pretty decent on this track before. He's won at Martinsville. He's got 8 top 5 finishes in his career, 18 top 10 finishes. I get it. That was in Penske, RCR, Stuart Haas, Roush. Those were good cars, and he's in Rick Ware. I'm not expecting a top 10 from Ryan Newman this week, but been good on this track. Again, raw speed isn't necessarily as much here as it is every other week, and it can come down to the driver a little more. We know he's a great driver. Talk about a guy with a modified background, a guy that still races modifieds. That's Ryan Newman. This is his type of racing. This is his type of track. Only 5,200, again, near the bottom here. This is a great way. You want to squeeze in Denny Hamlin. You want to squeeze in Kyle Larson. You want to get a couple of bigger guys on this. Play a guy like Ryan Newman near the bottom here at 5,200. I think he's got a pretty high ceiling or a pretty high floor for you, and he can score you some decent points as well. So love Ryan Newman, 5,200.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I did bring him up last week as a play, and he definitely did come through. For Ryan Newman, it's a matter of, he's there to log laps. He's there to fulfill the role of being in that car. And
unless he's in that Xfinity Burton Park car.
Well, exactly.
What the fuck was that last week? I'm glad I didn't play him because 30 laps in. Oh, they got problem. He parks it. I'm like, you starting parked for the 66 car. What are you doing, Ryan Newman?
That's all him, man. Yeah, so I like it. Again, I think for him, it's you want somebody who's not going to lose you points, and he doesn't necessarily lose you a lot of points. He's wise enough to know his role, and he knows he's not going to be running around the front for a win. But if he can get a solid top 25 finish, that's all you're asking for out of a guy like Ryan Newman. So I like him as well. All right, this is a punt, but a punt with some upside, I think, because again, when you start looking at the bottom of this list, I mean, I'm sorry, but BJ McLeod does not do it for me. Hardly any of these guys, like at the very bottom of this, Ty Dillon, JJ Yaley. You talked about Harrison Burton. I would think that would be the one that would give me a little bit more hope, but then he could give you a day like last week where he got you -3 points. Like his inconsistency just makes me like whatever. And then Justin Haley, Todd Gilliland, whatever. I'm going to go with Austin Cindric. You talked about it on the betting show. We should probably find a way to work 2 into the mix. Well, this is how we work 2 into the mix. Austin Cindric, $5,700. His price has continually gone down for the most part this season. It's been browbeating himself into a $5,700 price tag. And that's fine because that is where I feel comfortable taking him. Last week, he actually turned you up 47 points on $5,900 in salary. But then, of course, the week before, he gave you 15 and then 22 and then 43 and then 20. So I know I just harped on Harrison Burton's inconsistency and how Austin Cindric was pretty inconsistent as well. However, I will say that with Austin Cindric, his inconsistency is a little more tolerable because there's not a lot of negative points coming out of Austin Cindric. His fantasy points per race this season, 18.6. For a guy at $5,700, I'll take 18 points out of him. Honestly, I'll take 20 points out of him. That's fine with me. And if I get anywhere in the vicinity of 47, then I'll even consider that an even bigger win. Tough to do on this track for him altogether, though. I will say his last few finishes in this 2-car, he's only been on this track 3 times. So he did get an 11th place finish, though, in his rookie season. But then, of course, that was his rookie season where he had won the Daytona 500. That team was riding high. But it came back down to earth, 26th place finish in the fall of 2022, and then 33rd place finish in the spring of this year. But, again, for Austin Cindric, this is what happens when you click a tab and it's still open. For Austin Cindric, I'll bank on him hopefully having a day like he did last week, maybe at Homestead, where he snuck into a 12th place finish, maybe a 5th place like he did at Talladega. I know it's a super speedway, but can't really count. But he did finish 12th at Michigan. He's had decent enough finishes, right? It's just he's got to put them together. 13th at Gateway, which is a pretty good finish for him as well. 11th in Atlanta, 6th at Vegas. So he can get it done, just a matter of when. And I think this may be one where it's an okay opportunity to take a win. And again, in DFS, all I'm looking for is for him to be able to not screw up my lineup at this point.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things with the cheaper guys is you want to get somebody that's not going to mess it up for you. Even if they don't have a great day, they've got some upside, right? Because that's always nice. But somebody that's not going to mess it up. And you look at the cars like around him pricing wise too. Keep in mind he's in a Penske Ford. Like this is a good car, and I know Penske hasn't had the best season, but they're last year's champions. They still have somebody alive in the final 8 here, and as of right now, he's in the final 4. So you've got Carson Hocevar there in the Legacy Motor Club car, and you've got the JTG car. You've got front row cars. You've got Colleague, even a Spire car, not that much cheaper than him. Like, so you're getting a very good car, and we know that Austin Cindric's a good driver, right? We've seen it in the Xfinity Series. Hasn't completely come to play in the Cup Series just yet, but it's a good car and a strong driver, so I do like it.
All right, so that is it. That is the entire DFS Picks show that we've got for you. So why don't you get out your pen and paper as we go over the drivers that we have selected for your DFS slate. And Cody, if you put all of our drivers in, leaves you with
$2,200 left to play, so you got plenty extra money.
Plenty of extra money. All right, well then, Cody started you off with Kyle Larson as his high-priced driver. I gave you Denny Hamlin as my high-priced driver. And then Cody gave you, I know you said Corey LaJoie, but I put that in there. Who did you give out officially, though? Ryan Newman.
Ryan Newman, yes.
Yeah, Ryan Newman. Oh, sorry, you gave out Chase Briscoe as your
Yeah,
mid-price
that's my
driver.
mid-tier, yep.
So that was Chase Briscoe as your mid-tier driver. I gave you Ryan Preece as my mid-tier driver. And then Cody gave you, again, Ryan Newman as his value driver. And I gave you Austin Cindric as my value driver. Again, if you put all those guys together in a lineup, it leaves you with $2,200 to play around with. So feel free to upgrade on any one of these guys. And then, look, if you're putting Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin in a lineup together, whew, that is that's some heavy firepower.
Yeah, you've really got some room to play with stuff this week. And again, we'll see where people qualify at and everything, and you can make your decisions from there. But I mean, even if you start, with if you want to throw a couple of cheap guys in there, you throw a Newman and a Preece in there, or a Newman and a Briscoe to start with. Like, it's going to give you a lot of money to play with at the top of the board. And again, that might be a little bit more chalky this week, but it's 500 laps, Rod, and you're going to need to get those guys who lead the laps. And so you might have to play the Kyle Larsons. You might have to play the Denny Hamlins and see how the lineup shakes out and all that. But I feel like feeling good this week. We had a killer week last week. I know we talked about you giving out Newman. We gave out Christopher Bell. He ended up being one of the better plays, obviously getting the win at the end of the day. So yeah, I'm ready to go do it again. We only got 2 races left, sadly. I'm hoping that they just release, like, the week after Phoenix, go ahead and release the Daytona pricing so we can just start plugging in Millie Maker lineups as soon as possible, please.
I'm telling you, we have reached the penultimate DFS episode of the season. So as you collect your tissues to cry over this, don't worry. We'll be back again next week with more DFS. But as Cody's dabs at his tears to try to get over the loss. Again, we'll be back though. We're not done yet. We're not done for the
We'll
season.
be here all off season. You're not getting rid of us.
No, you can't get rid of us. I know that for most part, when a season ends, I'm always like, I don't stop listening to your I've built you into my day. There's nothing else.
The ones that end make me sad because I'm like, no, but I still want to listen. Like, because like Dale Jr., I mean, he's, he goes away for the season and those guys all, and I'm like, but I would still listen to you all off season. So we'll be here. Don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry about it. You've built us into your day. We'll continue to be part of that day.
Right.
So, all right. Speaking of being a part of the day, as we send everybody off to enjoy the rest of theirs, Cody, let everybody know where they can find you on social media.
Yep. Follow me on X at Husker_Zeeb. You can find all my work over there. Make sure you follow the show as well over on YouTube. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, all the fun things, and leave us a rating and review. Bosses notice that stuff. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of time since you guys have left a review, and we would love to know if you continue to enjoy us, if you're still out there listening. I know I see the numbers, so I know you are. If you're listening, don't worry about it. We don't mind you leaving us a review and telling us how we're doing. Again, even if it's, like the ones we've gotten before where they're like one guy yells and the other guy knows nothing about NASCAR. I figure if we're 293 episodes into this, the ones that don't want to listen to us have weeded themselves out. So that's fine.
Not too worried about those ones.
Be all right. Me either. All right. I'm on X at RJ Villagomez. Link in the bio, everything I got going on, whether it's here or whether it's the Sportsbook Review. And, of course, Hot Rod on Sports. I'm going to start posting to that soon with all my picks so you can follow along there. Just talk to me at RJ Villagomez. Let's have some conversations and some fun. In the meantime, everybody, we'll see you tomorrow with Underdog Fantasy picks for this Xfinity 500 for Martinsville. Till then, let's go racing and let it ride. Corey LaJoy says bye.